A very good afternoon to all of you. That's better. So I feel that you are present here. So the session is going to be a little lengthy and I don't have a presentation. I'll talk on the basis of the experience that I have of working both in the government, corporate and non-governmental agencies, as well as the multilateral agencies in the development sphere. At the outset, I would first like to congratulate BSSS IAS for organizing the conclave, wherein you have invited industry leaders and sector leaders in this area. A very commendable job, I must say. So a big clapping for BSS ISS. I would especially like to thank Father John and Madam Jessie for inviting me to speak, to talk my thoughts to you and share what my learnings and what my experiences has been in the journey of still being resilient. So this journey of being resilient manager is not learned in any business school. It needs to be an ever-ending, ever-learning process. You know, what do you mean actually by resilience? Can anybody of you speak out? What do you mean by resilience? Anybody? We have BBA students, we have MBA students. What is resilience? No? I see you all masked. Yes? Yes? Of course. Any more thoughts on this? Ability to adapt with the changes. Yes? Any more? Exactly so. You know, it's like finding ways of coping up with an uncertain situation, coping up with a shock. We have all been going through pandemic from one wave to other, to the third, to the fourth wave now still predicted. So we have learned to do what? We have learned being masking. We have learned going zooming, but with a distance, right? We are now following distancing, but also trying to get connected with each other through Zoom calls. So these are the various ways that we have learned when an uncertain situation like pandemic came in way of us. But is it just about, you know, finding ways to bounce back? Or is it also about to, you know, build capacities to recover? And we all have, you know, the skill of combating any uncertain situation, right from the beginning, you know, when we still did not know how to walk. You know, we used to fall, again get up, fall, again get up, and we learned how to walk, you know. So that's the way we all have some or the other ways of coping up with the adverse situation. So we all have that quality. The only thing is that we need to more be focused and develop that skill to combat it, not only personally, but also allow the society to be more resilient. So this is what I wanted to say about resilience, and your understanding about resilience is quite okay. So we all work in a very demanding working situation. Either you work in a corporate world where you know you have sales targets to meet, you have businesses to promote, or you work in big government projects or programs where the scale of operation is into millions. I work in an organization called Jivika, and Jivika is implementing the National Rural Livelihood Mission, if you are aware of. We work with 1.24 crore rural households. The total manpower strength or the HR strength that we have is above 10,000. We are operating in all the 534 blocks, 38 districts of Bihar. And we have offices in all the districts and all the blocks. And that's how our employee strength is around 10,000. Now, when in a government program like this, where you have to interact with your fellow colleagues and also give services to, 1.24 crores of women or rural households, your understanding of grasping things needs to be really, really fast. And you need to give same type of product or service to all across the state. So if you have to develop that, you are under a lot of stress. You are under a process of systematic planning, strategic planning, and you need to develop these skills. Again, understanding about the resilience, if we talk of in this manner, then we are seeing what are the changing scenario in the businesses across the globe. Businesses are really changing across the globe. All my fellow speakers have already pointed out what changes in the businesses have come after and before pandemic. So there has been a conscious, capitalism that is on the rise. When I talk of conscious capitalism, can anybody of you say that what I mean by conscious capitalism? Have you heard this word, conscious capitalism? Okay, so conscious capitalism is like the private sector or the industry sector is now moving towards more socially oriented programs. They are getting into programs which is more environmentally safe programs. They are getting into the sphere of rural development. They are getting into the sphere of, equality. They are getting into social enterprises mode. So there's a continuous process of conscious capitalism coming in all across the industry sector. Now, the corporates are now focusing on social and governmental targets. There has been huge public-private partnerships which are booming in every area. If you are talking of, building farmer-producer companies, yes, there is a lot of government and private partnerships. If you are talking of building roads, building bridges, there are huge public-private partnerships that are happening. Governments are working with the private sector as co-creators. Initially, what would happen, the government would assign tasks to the private sector. They would contract or subcontract tasks to them. But now, the process is not like that. The process is where the private sector and together with the government is co-creating solutions for the development of the country. Have you heard of Aadhaar cards, UIADs? Have you heard about the Passport Seva Kendra? All these have been public-private partnerships. The TCS has developed the entire Passport Seva Kendra portal. So you have a lot of co-creation and solutions coming with these public partnerships happening across the globe. No, it's not only happening in India, it's happening across the world. Have you heard about Bill Gates? Have you heard about Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? How many of you have heard about it? Great. So Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is now into providing funds for health promotion in most of the countries. They also provide funding to India and also in many other African countries. So this sort of tie-ups or this sort of partnership is coming up. So you need to understand what type of businesses the world is now moving towards. Both the government and the industries are grappling with the issues of three major points. And I think you would agree with me. They're all working under violent situations. You know, there is huge crisis across the globe, the cross-border crisis that we're having. So a lot of, you know, international diplomacies are going around this violent situation that is arising across the globe. We are also fighting situations like pandemic, and there also a lot of diplomacy is going through. The government as well as the private sector is coming up to stabilize the supply chain. If the supply chain would not have been stabilized by Pfizer and other companies coming in, our government would never have been able to, you know, vaccinate these crores of people. And we are the topper in the world in vaccinating our citizens in it. So the government is taking a lot of private support in making things work for its citizens. So you need to understand that, yes, corporate understands the globe is changing. One basic thing that any manager should learn to be resilient is, and many of the speakers have already pointed that out, is that you need to be understanding the policies and guidelines and the organizational norms. You need to grasp that as fast as you can. If you are not able to understand, adhere to the laws of that particular organization or company where you are moving to, maybe you might not be able to deliver. I give you an example of the organization that I belong to. We recruit over 100 young professionals from campuses every year. And the first job that we offer them is to become a project manager. And you know what is the financial portfolio that manager holds? It's around 2 crores annually. That means that manager has a financial power to transact of 2 crores. He or she has the authority to handle 2 crores of rupees annually. Now this is all public money. This is all money which taxpayers have paid, and you have to roll out because we roll out government programs. जब भी taxpayers की money हम execute करते हैं, a lot of processes are involved in it, है ना? तो उसमें procurement policies क्या होंगे? Financial management policies क्या हैं? क्या guidelines follow करने पड़ेंगे? कौन से procurement norms? Do you understand procurement? How many of you understand procurement? What is procurement? Yes. Attain what? Right. Yes. So you procure goods and services. No company can work on its own. Like एक automobile company को भी कई सारे raw materials अलग-अलग company से procure करना पड़ता है. In that same manner, government also has to make a lot of procurements. Even hiring of, recruiting or hiring of staff comes under the procurement laws. So what are the processes? एक goods को procure करने के क्या नियम हैं? You can't go and just say कि हमको 10, to run this particular conclave, you need these many chairs, you need the entire event management processes, you need to take services of hotels, you need to take services of the caterers who are providing you food, and all these things. You need to arrange for the mics, you need to do the live streaming and all these things. It all includes several levels of procurement processes. So you can just not go out and say कि यहाँ ये मिल रहा है, खरीद लेते हैं. Even the brochure that you printed, you need to follow a procurement process that who should print your brochure. तो ये government के programs और processes में ये procurement process is a very important thing. Unless you understand these policies, these guidelines of how to procure things, you might fall under a lot of integrity questions. You might have done with, very good intentions. कि हमने तो सोचा कि best को ले लें. लेकिन ना तो 3 कोटेशन लाए, ना कि बिड ओपन किया. How many of you understand tender, bidding? Right. So, अगर टेंडर करना है तो कैसे टेंडर करना है, बिडिंग करना है तो कैसे बिडिंग करना है, एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ इंटरेस्ट कैसे देना है, आरएफपी अगर करना है, आई मीन रिक्वेस्ट फॉर प्रपोजल अगर लिखना है, टर्म्स ऑफ रेफरेंस कैसे डिसाइन करना है. All these things are certain things that you need to learn. And if you are not learning these guidelines, these processes, then maybe you might not be able to deliver your tasks in a better manner. So first is, if you have to really make yourself a resilient manager, you need to learn and understand the organization norms, guidelines, and policies very, very thoroughly. And then you need to learn to dance with the system. I'll say dance with the system. Here, you need to learn to align with the system. You can make a lot of tweaking. You can make a lot of innovative aspects, creative things within the policy framework. Okay, so it's the whole idea of replicating the best practices have gone. आंध्र प्रदेश में एक बहुत अच्छा कार्यक्रम चला, उसको उठा के बिहार में रेप्लिकेट किया. It doesn't work anymore. You know, एक कहावत है ना, all size, क्या बोलते हैं? You know the proverb well. One size fits all. One size fits all की जो कहावत है और या जो strategy है, it's just gone. You need to conceptualize, contextualize the entire processes. So instead of replicating the best practices, you need to learn to align with the system. जो policies, guidelines, systems आपके organization, आपकी industry, आपकी company के पास है, उस processes, उस systems को align करते हुए, उस systems के साथ अपने आप को ढाल के किस तरीके का change processes आप उस जगह ला सकते हैं. That is one particular skill that you need to adapt to or learn to. The second solution that to be really systematic or resilient is private sector is today, you know, sorting out supply chains, as I have already spoken of, for global companies, taking social enterprises through its current hype into something that makes a genuine contribution. कल के डेट में भी, you know, making sanitary napkins by big companies was a social entrepreneurship initiative. But today, it is making a social norm. It's making a social change in the entire society. So how you can think of solutions which can impact a larger society is what we need in young managers today. We need solutions from you to solve the issues of the country, to solve malnutrition of the country, to solve other problems of the country. So how you can groom yourself and see yourself in changing processes to build the nation is what that you need to equip yourself into. You know, doing a job 9 to 5, tasks defined है, उसको करना एक चीज होता है, और coming up with solutions is what we need in young managers like you. As many of my friends already have spoken, that the entire client base lies in rural India. And if you do not understand rural India, maybe you would not be able to function well in any of the companies that you work in. आज की टेलीकॉम इंडस्ट्री में चले जाए, टेलीकॉम इंडस्ट्री is just penetrating into rural areas. If you go for, you know, irrigation industry में अगर जाए तो irrigation, best of the irrigation industries are now penetrating to rural areas. The government's farmer producer company policy that has come up allows or creates scope of large number of collaborations that the rural markets can make with the corporates outside. So all the corporates are now looking towards rural areas. So ITC से लेकर डाबर तक रूरल एरियाज में ही ऑपरेट करती है. तो unless you understand what is more important in the rural areas, maybe your orientation towards rural areas अगर नहीं होती है, तो maybe you will again lose on issues that are very apt in the corporate world. As most of my earlier speakers have also spoken of, emphasizing upon digitization. So, digitization is the new buzzword. I would not say new. IT in India is ruling all over the world. So, जो digitization and technologization processes hai, that is coming up very fast, not only in the corporates, but all across. Have you heard about this public app? How many of you know about public app? Well, you have two people knowing. तो आपका जो मोबाइल में आपका फोन का एड्रेस है ना, वो एड्रेस पिक करता है और आपको लोकल वीडियोस और लोकल न्यूज़ बताता है. Nobody is interested in understanding, a person staying in a remote village of, say, Madhya Pradesh, चलिए केसला का किसी एक जगह पर रहता है, but उसको क्या जरूरत है जानने का कि दिल्ली का वेदर कैसा है. He would be more interested in understanding कि केसला में कल पानी आएगा कि नहीं आएगा. अगर पानी आएगा तो मेरे को इरिगेशन देना है या नहीं देना है. That sort of localized news is more required, and we have solutions in digital and technological world, and managers like you have developed these apps to solve the problems of farmers there. So you need to continuously create and innovate yourself and prepare yourself to solve problems of the world. Managers are here to solve issues, big issues. So how good are you in solving problem than creating problem is what you need to adapt very, very soon in your career. And of course, you need to understand the power and exclusion game very, very well. Where does the power lie? Where is the exclusion happening? How can you gel very well to make a balance between this power and exclusion? अगर आप rural India की बात करेंगे, there is always a dominance of elite in that particular area. तो जो भी schemes, welfare schemes हो या जो भी programs आता है, you'll find the most educated of that village getting all the benefits of those schemes. But the most needy person, जो remote hamlets में रहते हैं, जिनकी खाना नहीं मिलता है, they don't even have a PDS card. So you need to work out there to find out how do you balance this power and exclusion and come up with solutions. You cannot, totally, isolate these powerful people in the village and work in that area. But you need to learn how to, work together and help the most needy people out there. So this is one aspect that you need to learn, but you can only learn when you are going in the field, understanding the issues, and then trying to cultivate the policies, the systems, the processes out there. Another big thing that is coming up in the development sector or in the economic sector is that we are all stressed and we all want to be resilient. Now, how do we actually adapt to these processes of being resilient? जैसे जैसे हम इंडस्ट्री में घुसते हैं या करियर में घुसते हैं, अपने प्रोफेशनल लाइफ पे घुसते हैं, till you join a MBA institute, in your CV, you used to write what your hobbies were. But once you are into a professional world, you just forget about your hobbies. कि क्या करते थे? I know many of my friends, they are so stressed और इतना ज़्यादा उनका targets हैं और उनको काम करना पड़ता है कि they were master painters at one point in time, but have not picked up their brush even for once for the last 10 years. So cultivating your dreams. This is another way of, venting out your stress. जो stress है ना, if you want to sing, go out and sing. If you are an adventure person, go and register yourself into the adventure sports club. Go जाइए for at least 10 days in a year for an trekking in the Himalayas. Go motorbiking all along. Whatever your, hobbies or adventure or your dreams are. After all, don't compromise with your dreams. This is how can you do that, is that you need to learn, you need to be self-aware about yourself. कि हमारी कैपेसिटी कितनी है और क्या चीज हम डेवलप करें अपने अंदर ताकि अपना काम को भी हम बैलेंस कर पाए और अपने ड्रीम्स को भी पूरा कर पाए. This whole process is कि इतना स्ट्रेस्ड है, इतने टारगेट्स हैं, इतना वर्क प्रेशर है. What is happening is people like you are jumping and just job hopping. दो साल यहाँ काम कर लिया, very good, very nice, it was good. Once the pressure starts coming in, you just can't tackle it and you just move on to a different organization where you think that the scenario would be better. And this job hopping every time brings more stress in your life. So ये चीज को थोड़ा सा समझने की जरूरत है. And I think all these things you can learn from your peers best. इसीलिए I was talking that you need to develop networkings. ये network amongst yourself. When you are students, with your fellow students, you need to have a very strong network. आजकल बहुत सारे platforms हैं, social networking platforms हैं, where you can get connected with each other. You can get into networks of, of your alumni maybe, or of your seniors. Maybe you can learn from them how it works in their industry, how it is in their sphere of operation. Another thing that you could also do is, as many of my fellow speakers have already spoken, that try to make friends in the industries where you would like to work in. And try to get into those networks. LinkedIn is another good example where you can connect with other people. ये adventure sports club में भी जाएंगे ना, तो people from various backgrounds आते हैं वहाँ. Just get associated with these clubs, these places. You will get to know about the sector. Your mindset will broaden in a big manner. So it doesn't mean कि एक MBA finance ही एक MBA finance के साथ बात करेगा. A MBA finance can have a very good relationship with a person in a rural area who has just started his business, an entrepreneur. And इन दोनों का जो combination है ना, ये बहुत अच्छा work करता है. A rural entrepreneur can give solutions to the MBA guy, and the MBA guy can give, more technical and more nuanced solutions, business planning solutions to this rural entrepreneur in the village. So you need to frame that network. You need to build that bridges, how you can grow in yourself. And of course, another thing which is very, very important is that you always need to have a mentor. You need to identify your own mentors in every processes that you go. In colleges, you can have your, you can have your mentor. You can select one of your professors as your close guide, as a close mentor of yours, with whom you can, share all your thoughts to that particular person. And that particular person can help you out in your processes of learning, in your processes of delivering things. So try to get into a mentor-mentee relationship. So this mentor-mentee relationship हर एक sphere में अलग-अलग हो सकता है, or you can also have a single mentor जिससे you think that you can connect to and you can get solutions to. So this is another way in which you can be resilient. दूसरा एक चीज है कि पर्सनल many places many people say कि पर्सनल फ्रंट को प्रोफेशनल फ्रंट से अलग करके देखिए. ठीक है, अलग है, but In this pandemic situation, हम लोगों ने देखा कि how when you are low on your personal front, your own, relatives are dying for want of a bed in the hospital or for, getting an oxygen cylinder maybe. Your professional networks help you in getting that particular aspect in your own house. Similarly, when you're professionally not doing good, your personal life, your personal families and people can support you to cope up with your professional stress. So help that, don't miss on that. Many a times what we do is we neglect our personal front to develop our professional area. Or many a times we neglect our professional area to develop our personal, to solve our personal issues. This particular thing is very important, that how you build up your own close friends, how you build up your own relations, and you build up your own social capital personally. That's very, very important to fight stress in your professional life. So these things you need to learn. So ऐसा नहीं है कि आज 2 साल इस इंस्टीट्यूट में रहे and we were, best of the buddies, everybody across the institute would say that इन लोग दोनों की जोड़ी है एकदम से, क्या है शोले का वो दो कौन थे, जय और वीरू, तो जय और वीरू की जोड़ी है. कोई कोई तो और भी त्रिशूल के 3 शूल हुआ करते हैं कॉलेजेस में और कैंपसेस में. बट वंस दे आर इनटू देयर प्रोफेशनल एरियाज, बस टच छूट गया, कुछ नहीं करते. तो ये जो कॉलेज में ये जो ना कि कॉलेज में ऐसा नहीं होता है ना कि वहाँ कैंटीन्स में लड़ाई नहीं होती है ना. आप लोगों के कैंटीन्स में भी तो ऑफ कोर्स उस तरीके का हमारे जमाने वाली लड़ाई नहीं होती होगी. आप आजकल तो आपके इंस्टीट्यूट में नो हिटिंग जोन्स हैं, बट देयर विल बी a person who is bullying on others, and when a person is bullying on others, then your viru wala jo dost hai na, they come and help you out to fight that situation. But professional field में भी तो ऐसा होता है. Then you can't call your viru because you have lost touch with that viru for last 10 years. So you need to cultivate that particular personal friendship to tackle your professional stresses as well. On what the institute to do to sow the seed of being resilient managers, I was just speaking in a discussion there, and I had suggested that many institutes follow a lot of tools to understand the self-awareness, to understand what your competencies are, what your know-how is, and to understand your own aptitude, your own strengths and weaknesses. There are various tools. You can use the tool of Myers and Briggs typology tool. You can introduce that in your institute, and that changes over the age of the person who is going through that process. But right from the beginning, you get to know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. And then you also try to understand that tools helps you to understand some 5 people around you, that what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are. Whenever you are going and delivering as managers in any company or any organization, you need to work with your team. If you know what are the strengths of your fellow team members, you can delegate work in a more systematic and effective manner. So maybe this particular tool can be introduced in your institute for self-awareness, for learning processes. You might also take a lot of courses on sociometric aptitude and attitude promotion processes as well. So, and I think the whole process of mentor and mentee, when this process of mentor and mentee happens, you can also have your fellow mates as your critique. It is very important to understand, to self-critique, to understand what am I good in and what I'm not being able to cope up with. So this mentor and mentee helps each other to identify your weaknesses. So that can also be a process which the institute can think of starting, maybe in forming small groups of mentor and mentees from the senior and the junior batches and things like that, or from the alumni and the batches here. So this way, you cultivate and you try to equip yourself in your resilience processes. But I again say, the institute can just sow the seed of, making you resilient. This process of resilience is a ever learning process. At every stage, you need to cope up with new situations, learn new processes to cope up with these situations. Thank you very much.